Tinubu presents a 58.47 trillion naira 2026 budget proposal to National Assembly. Defense gets biggest slice. INEC chairman meets PDP factions as leadership crisis lingers. Gunmen abduct 9 in Kogi community. Residents demand airborne surveillance. On the foreign scene, South Africa unbowed after U.S. threatens consequences over refugee center raid. Hello and welcome to News Hour on Trust TV. I am Maimuna Bagudu. Now, President Bola Tinubu on Friday presented Nigerians' highest ever budget to a joint session of the National Assembly tagged Consolidation, Renewed Resilience and Shared Prosperity. The 2026 appropriation bill estimates total expenditure at 58.18 trillion naira with a crude oil benchmark of 64.85 US dollars per barrel, production of 1.84 million barrels per day, and an exchange rate of 1,400 to the US dollar.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished members, our 2025 budget implementation faced the reality of a transition and competing execution demands. As of the third quarter, 18.6 trillion naira in revenue, representing 61% of our target. That's poor. And 24.66 trillion naira in expenditure, representing 60% of our target. Following the extension of the 2024 capital budget execution, the December 2025, a total of 2.23 trillion naira was released for implementation of the 2024 projects as of June 2025. While physical challenges persisted, the government met its key obligations. All key obligations are met. However, only 3.10 trillion naira, about 17% of 2025 capital budget, was released as of the third quarter, reflecting the emphasis on completing priority projects. All the 2024 capital projects during the transition period.
Now, joining us via Zoom to discuss on the budget story is Oludamilola Onimano, a senior research analyst. Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
All right, let's jump right in. Now, this budget is based on oil at 64.85 US dollar per barrel and also production of 1.84 million barrels per day. Now, in recent years, Nigeria has struggled to consistently meet production target. What happens to this budget if oil output falls below that level?
All right, thank you so much for that question. So with the 64 barrel per day for the 2026, in 2025 they have proposed a 75 oil barrel per day. It just basically shows us that at the end of the day, Nigeria has very little control over how much they sell in terms of oil, right? And when it comes to how it impacts on us, we can see it coming out in the MTEF that was just released, how revenue projections were not met by a lot, right? So despite that President had made mention of us meeting a 61% in revenue. That was about 18.6 trillion in revenue for 2025. The MTF itself reported only 10 trillion in revenue, which goes to show that, first of all, is oil, which we are much more dependent on, we are not producing enough as to meet it, which is why our production is also reducing. The production projection as of last year was 2.06 million barrels per day. Now it is at a 1.84. This is something that on a on an annual basis should progress. This is something that on an annual basis should be increasing every single time. But then we're finding a regress in the numbers. So basically, your oil projections, your oil projections in terms of prices, in terms of the revenue projections, in terms of the production itself always affects what you get in total revenue. And this has been seen clearly in what has happened in 2025. We are not able to fully meet our revenue targets in the annual year, and it will continuously be a trend in further years, because we're finding years where we don't even meet up to 70% or highest, even 80% of our revenue projections. And other areas suffer, areas like our capital budget suffers. That's why we see that we are concurrently running 2024, 2025, and then now we'll be running 2026 capital budget, because we do not have enough revenue within the year to be able to fizzle all of those things.
Now, another question on the lips of Nigerians is concerning the exchange rate, and the exchange rate assumption is 1,400 naira to the dollar, and Nigerians are used to, the wide swings in the FX market. So how important is exchange rate stability to making this budget work?
So I believe it's a lot important, because as much as we try to think of our economy as oil dependent, we are still dependent on a whole lot of other sectors, right? Manufacturing, mining, whatnot, right? And all of these sectors are import intensive, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's agriculture, whether it's in the creative sector. It is very import dependent. And these raw materials, these goods and services that are import dependent would rely solely on the exchange rate. The higher the exchange rate, the more expensive they are, the more expensive production cost becomes, right? So contributing to the nation as a whole, the healthier the naira, the better each sector can bloom, the better the economy can grow. Yes, so the projection for, I think the projection for GDP growth is at a 4.28%. But however, it's all falls down to all the macroeconomic indicators. What is the exchange rate going to be? Yes, they've said it's 1,400, but is it realistic? Is it something that is achievable? We'll say within the year, we'll patch the naira fall down to 1,460, 1,480. It's something that can be achieved, but the measures to which they would achieve this have not fully been outlined.
And looking at the spending and earnings of the government. Now, the government said they plan to spend 58.18 trillion naira, but expect to earn only 34.33 trillion naira. That is leaving a 23.85 trillion naira deficit. So is this gap too large for the economy to carry?
Okay, so especially given what was recorded as achieved within the year, it's too large a gap, because if we're being realistic, you should plan based off of the amount you have earned, right? If they say they earned an 18 trillion within the year, why not let's be credible enough, let's be disciplined enough in our fiscal outlines to plan towards what we have achieved. So Nigeria has never done above a 20 trillion revenue. Why not let's plan our budget to fit that size, right? Why not let's plan our budget to fit within maybe 30 of 40 trillion. But when we keep going above, our deficit keeps increasing, which brings about more borrowing, which brings about more debt servicing. Our debt servicing is going up to 15.52 trillion, which is up from the 13.43 that we had recorded or was projected for last year. This is collecting the huge sum of, or the huge component of part of what should be spent on capital expenses or capital projects and whatnot, right? So this gap of deficit cannot be met without any form of borrowings, right? There is no clear-cut way that this kind of deficit can be met. So I feel like the government needs to come back to realism and say we haven't always achieved this large amount of revenues that we are projecting, which gives us even more and more deficits than what is even targeted. So why not let's sit on the table and ensure that whatever is projected still falls in line with the revenue that's happening or the revenue that we have recorded over the years. If I, as an individual, if I'm expecting my salary, I can't plan my salary based off of what I hope to be my promotion next year, or I can't plan my expenses based on what I hope to be my promotion next year. I plan it based on how much I have actualized in the year or how much has been made for me or how much has been projected for me, but not based off of how much I'm assuming to make. I feel like a lot of things are done and they're not being realistic about it.
And now looking at debt servicing alone is 15.52 trillion naira. I mean, almost half of the projected revenue. Now, does this mean Nigeria is spending more to service debt than to improve lives through services and infrastructure?
So that would be the implication at the most, right? That would be the implication because debt servicing is something that happens always. Like it is a recurrent expenditure. It has to be paid, right? So as much as you are planning for salaries, you are planning to service your debt. And this debt servicing comes with a lot of interest. So the government can do without or under prioritize capital expenditure just to ensure that they meet those debt servicing. And we are seeing debt servicing going all the way to 15.2 trillion. That is more than half of what is projected as the capital expenses. Given the way our current situation is where we don't even get enough revenue, a lot of times the revenues go all the way to service debts and pay salaries, and there's little to nothing that is left for capital expenditure, meaning that you're not even able to achieve half or quarter of what is projected as capital expenditure. So capital infrastructure, in the improvement of citizens' lives and properties, the provisions of social amenities will keep suffering because our debt servicing keeps increasing or keeps getting enlarged.
Okay, now when we look at the breakdown of this budget, you realize that defense receives 5.41 trillion naira. That, of course, is the biggest slice of the budget. Now, given that insecurity has continued despite rising allocations over the years, what concrete results should we expect this time?
So, especially with the rise of insecurity, over and over. I think for the past 10, if not 15 years, defense and security has had the highest allocation sector-wise in the budget. Highest allocation, but yet we're not seeing it translate into credible or into useful results or into impactful results. I don't think it's wrong to give the highest allocation to defense and security. Defense and security is very important. There is no other sector that can function fully if there is no security, if there is no peace within the communities, right? But however, I think we need to go beyond just investing to seeing results. Seeing results. We don't want to see the fact that you're pouring in so much money, but yet there is little result or there's little impact. The hype of kidnapping is going up by the day. The hype of banditry, headsmen, and whatnot is going up by the day. It has to translate into credible results that people can actually hold on to and say, oh, within that budget here or within that budget circle, whatever was invested in can now improve. We can now say there has been some improvement. And the truth is, once we improve on the defense and security, there are other sectors that can follow. Agriculture can bloom because people can now go to their farms. People can now participate actively in producing crops and livestock in the country. Education, people are able to go to school and whatnot. People are able to also access healthcare facilities, right? So getting it right and ensuring that these monies are not just going down the drain, but are being invested properly to ensure that there's result is the way to go.
Thank you, Olu Damilola Onimasmano. I hope I got your name correctly. Thank you for speaking with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
All right, now moving on, the Nigerian Senate has confirmed Orishimeyiwa Eyesan as the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, NUPRC, and Saidu Mohammed as the head of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA. The approvals followed plenary deliberations after joint Senate committees on petroleum upstream, downstream, and gas screened the nominees and adopted their report, Now, President Bola Tinubu submitted the nominations on Thursday to replace the agency heads who recently resigned. The former NMDPRA Managing Director Farouk Ahmed stepped down on Wednesday following corruption allegations filed by the chairman of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote.
Saidu Mohammed is hereby confirmed as Chief Executive of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Will the Senate confirm the nomination of Orishimeyiwa Amano Risaiwu Eyesan for appointment as Chief Executive of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The nomination of Orishimeyiwa Amano Risaiwu Eyesan is hereby confirmed as Chief Executive of the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission.
And now the Independent National Electoral Commission on Friday intervened in the leadership crisis rocking the People's Democratic Party, summoning the party's rival factions to its headquarters in Abuja. The meeting brought together the faction led by Tanimu Turaki and the group headed by Abdulrahman Mohammed, which is backed by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike. And Turaki attended the meeting alongside members of his National Working Committee, Secretariat staff, and former Niger State Governor Babangida Aliyu, while Mohammed was accompanied by a member of his National Caretaker Committee, including its Secretary, Senator Sam Anyawu. And speaking at the opening of the meeting, the INEC Chairman, Professor Joash Amupitan, said the intervention became necessary following a series of conflicting correspondence received from the party. He noted that the intervention was also informed by preparations for the Federal Capital Territory Area Council elections scheduled for February 21st, 2026, as well as the governorship polls in Ekiti and Osun states slated for June and July 2026, respectively. The INEC chairman stressed that the Commission's actions were guided strictly by the Constitution, the Electoral Act, and the internal regulations, assuring the factions of its neutrality.
We have decided to invite all the parties, especially the fact that we have received conflicting correspondences from the People's Democratic Party. And we felt that this rubbing minds together will be a good opportunity for us to forge the way forward.
When we arrived this morning, however, we discovered that some former members of our party who had earlier been expelled were also invited, according to INEC, with a view to looking for possible solutions that will solve what the chairman described as lingering problems within the People's Democratic Party. So we had spoken with him from our own perspective. We've made presentation of what we think the issues are, and we've spoken to those issues. And INEC had listened to us, and INEC had said, even though that there are matters that are before the Court of Appeal and matters have not been heard, and INEC cannot take the place of a court of jurisdiction, but that they will look into what we have said.
INEC invited us because of the issue of correspondences that have been flying from our own side and the other side. And as a matter of fact, you are aware, and all of you are aware, that the court qualified the convention at Oyo, and there was no convention. And because nature abhors vacuum, that was why the INEC and the BOT, in their wisdom, appointed the Caretaker Committee to stay and put things together and conduct all the congresses that have not been done based on the court's judgments.
Now, strong backlash dominated the Senate committees on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters public hearing on Legal Practitioners Act and Terrorism Act. The committee had recommended death penalty for kidnapping, but justice bodies warned it won't stop the crime. The session reviewed amendments to the Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act to cover kidnapping offenses. But the Attorney General of the Federation, the Nigerian Bar Association and the National Human Rights Commission and others rejected it outright. They cited evidence and Nigerians' track record saying capital punishment fails as a deterrent. Instead, it risks overloading the justice system and ignoring root causes of violent crime.
For example, you are liberty as lawyers to in the open defend a murderer, and you go home and sleep. I, as a senator, when somebody from my constituency is killed by a kidnapper or set of kidnappers, and they see the person walking freely, or he goes to court, and the court asks him to go and spend 5 years, 10 years in prison, meanwhile their loved ones have been killed. Our people do not understand that as justice. The law of society must reflect the values of the aggregate views of community, not of the learned minds, not of the senators. Today, I still stand. I have been harassed, not only me, every senator here, each time. People from our communities across the country are kidnapped, and in the process, some are killed. Women have been raped, and after rape, they are killed. Children have been offered. So, for those who talk of human rights, who's right?
In the case of America that you have mentioned, it is not a state matter. It is a federal matter. If you ask for mutual legal assistance, it's not a state of Illinois or Maryland that will do it. It's from Washington. So the standard is by Washington, not any of the 50 states in America. And the position is clear. We have to be very wary of winning something and losing the battle. We have to be very, very practical. We need to fight it. That is one. Number two, you may honestly be swaying sentiment in favor of suspects. The way some of the judicial, I'm not a judge, but the way some of them think at times, and they are human beings, is along the line of, oh, I have a choice between leaving this man or convicting him. Oh, if I convict him, I'll be mandated to sentence him into death. They would rather leave him. We have to be very practical. We're all involved. We're all concerned. We're all pained. But softly, softly. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, but I want to remind you that in whatever.
Now, troops of the 8th Division Garrison of the Nigerian Army Sokoto have neutralized 5 armed bandits and recovered weapons and motorcycles during coordinated security operations in parts of Sokoto and Zamfara states. A credible military source confirmed on Friday that the well-coordinated offensive commenced on Wednesday, targeting identified bandit hideouts across several communities. The operation covered Gangara, Makawana, Saturu, Beichi and Kurukusu villages in Isa local government area of Sokoto state, while troops also advanced into Batamna village in Shinkafi local government area of Zamfara state, where they encountered stiff resistance from the criminals. The source recalled that troops of the 8th Division had earlier neutralized notorious bandit kingpins operating in Sabon, Birini and Isa local government areas of Sokoto state. Now, meanwhile, the special advisor to the Sokoto State Governor on Security Matters, Colonel Ahmed Usman, retired, alongside other residents, has commended the Nigerian Army and other security agencies for the sustained successes recorded in the fight against banditry in the state. Now, at least 9 persons have been abducted by gunmen in Inele Ugu Iga Ikeje community of Olama Boro local government area of Kogi state. Now, among the victims are 4 mourners, a woman and her 3 children who were reportedly on their way to attend a burial ceremony in a neighboring community when they were intercepted by the attackers. The incident occurred in the early hours of Friday when over 40 armed men stormed the community. The gunmen reportedly overpowered the victims and hurried them into the forest. Now, 5 other residents were also abducted separately on their farms during the raid. And eyewitnesses said the large number of gunmen and the sophisticated weapons they carried forced local vigilante members to withdraw, as they were unable to confront the attackers. A distress call was immediately sent to troops of the 12th Brigade of the Nigerian Army stationed at a nearby checkpoint. However, residents said the soldiers arrived after the gunmen had already escaped into the forest. Although troops and local vigilantes are currently combing the surrounding forest in search of the victims, community members insist that ground operations alone may not be sufficient. They are calling on authorities to deploy drones and police helicopters from Lokoja to enhance surveillance and aid rescue efforts. And meanwhile, members of the Kogi East Neighborhood Watch have raised concerns that kidnappers have increasingly concentrated their activities in communities within Alamaboro local government area. Efforts to obtain official confirmation from the Kogi State Police Command were unsuccessful, as calls to the command spokesperson were not returned at the time of filing this report. Now, still in Kogi State, insecurity suspected cattle rustlers have stolen 50 cows in Bugu, a rural community in the Lafiaji area of the state. The security sources said the incident occurred at about 4 p.m. on Thursday when 2 young Fulani herders, Hassan and Hosseini, both aged 25, were grazing their cattle on the outskirts of the village. The herders were reportedly ambushed by armed men who emerged from nearby bushes and forcefully drove away the animals before fleeing the scene. The incident was formally reported by security agencies by Abubakar Mahamadu and Malam Tijani Ahmed, the secretary of the Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association in Lafiaji. And following the report, security agencies launched an immediate response. A joint task force comprising personnel of the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Police Force, members of the Village Guard Network and local hunters has been deployed to the area to track down the perpetrators. A security official involved in the operation said the team has begun a coordinated search of nearby forest, bush paths, and known cattle routes commonly used by rustlers. Now, Christian communities in Katsina State are calling for an improved economy that provides relief from the current hardships facing Nigerians. Most Reverend Gerald Mama Musa, Bishop of St. Martin's de Porres Catholic Diocese, delivered the message in his Christmas address, to the faithful ahead of the 2025 celebrations. And Trust TV's Abdullahi Yamadi reports.
The cattle are lowing, the baby away, the little Lord Jesus, no crying he made. I love thee, Lord Jesus, look down from the sky and stay by my cradle till morning is night.
Bishop Musa urged Nigerian political leaders to prioritize the security of lives and property over the protection of mineral resources. He emphasized the need for policies that enhance citizens' living conditions rather than imposing additional taxes that exacerbate economic hardship. He called on all Nigerians, regardless of religious differences, to remain united and resist internal or foreign attempts to destabilize the country along religious or ethnic lines. He stressed that peace, unity, and progress must guide national life. The cleric also advised political leaders to abandon the divide and rule strategies often used to manipulate elections. He called on them to embrace peace, unity, and justice as essential for the nation's progress. Nigeria is in urgent need of peace, unity, and compassion, and there is no better time to achieve this than now, he said.
These groups continue to suffer from insecurity, inflation, and the ripple effects of the removal of fuel subsidy. The government must therefore provide targeted support for farmers and rural workers, strengthen micro, small, medium enterprises through grants and soft loans, avoid taxes that lack a human and compassionate face, recover revenue lost to illegal mining, oil theft, reckless borrowing and waste, and cut government excesses and extravagance.
In the context of rising national tensions and insecurity, Bishop Musa highlighted the critical role of religious leaders in promoting love, patriotism, and dialogue rather than using pulpits to escalate crises. He warned against granting foreign investors preferential access to Nigeria's mineral resources at the expense of domestic investors, describing such moves as detrimental to citizens. The cleric also condemned the intermittent closure of schools, calling it mortgaging the country's future.
As we approach the year 2026, we recall that on the night of Christ's birth, the angels proclaimed, "Glory to God in the highest, and peace on earth to people of good will." May that peace radiate across Nigeria, and especially in Katsina State, from our villages to our cities, from our homes to our government houses. May the coming year be a time when peace overcomes violence, justice overcomes corruption, and hope overcomes despair.
With the 2027 political contest approaching, Bishop Musa advised leaders to avoid actions that could overheat the polity. He encouraged stakeholders to trust in destiny and God, who assigns responsibilities to whomever he wills. Abdullahi Ismail Yamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Now moving on to more stories across Nigeria, women and girls continue to face legal and social challenges ranging from gender-based violence and harmful traditional practices that limited their rights to justice. Women lawyers say strengthening legal institutions is very important as success depends on effective collaboration between government, non-governmental organizations and international partners. Victoria Tokolo reports.
Gender-based violence continues to pose a serious threat to safety, particularly for women and girls. Despite sustained advocacy and ongoing legal reforms, records show that between January and September 2025, about 10,326 cases of gender-based violence were reported across Nigeria. Of this number, only 2,444 survivors accessed care through recovery centers, while 511 survivors received livelihood and empowerment support. Although findings from the 2024 National Demographic and Health Survey indicate a decline in reported cases, the situation remains troubling. Statistics still show that 1 in every 3 women and girls experience some form of gender-based violence. Speaking with residents in Lagos on this pressing issue, many noted that while laws have been passed at the federal level, implementation remains weak in several states. Some residents acknowledge that the Lagos state government has taken a firm stance against gender-based and domestic violence, but expressed concerns that other states are yet to fully domesticate and enforce the law. They described the situation in some states as a lack of political will, especially where enforcement is not seen as financially rewarding.
We have to push information to our women, our girls, on how to protect themselves, and this can only be done through partnership with the community they are living in. So how can this community help in bringing about this? Education. A girl child should be educated. A girl child should not be forced into marriage at a tender age.
You can pick your business life again. Once you see people that can empower them in terms of skills acquisition, we have someone that wants to go to school but lack of funds. And we have several NGOs, international partners that deals with, strictly for the education. The survivor that wants to go to school will pay their school fees, enroll them. Ours is to enroll,
It will help them by empowering them. Even the government have to do a lot in empowering the women. It will help them to carry the children along. If you don't take good care of the children, the mothers, if you cannot empower the women, they have every chance to just abandon the kids. Most of them in the hotel, they have children that they have abandoned at home, and those children, they grow up to the streets. So the best thing you can do is to take care of the women, empower them, and then follow them up, and then share as much as we can to take care of the women.
More than a decade after the federal government enacted the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, gender-based violence remains widespread across the country. Advocates are now calling on all state governments to fully domesticate and implement the law to curb the rising cases of abuse and protect vulnerable citizens. Until all states take responsibility and enforce the law, gender-based violence will continue to pose a persistent challenge in Nigerian society.
Now, driving schools are everywhere in Nigeria's cities, yet road crashes remain high. This gap is raising fresh questions about how drivers are trained, how licenses are issued, and how closely regulators enforce the rules. And Trust TV's Noel Samson reports.
From Lagos to Abuja, Port Harcourt to Onitsha, driving school signboards line major roads, yet formal driver training is increasingly treated as optional. Investigations show that many motorists obtain driver's licenses without attending accredited driving schools, bypassing required procedures through shortcuts and collusion involving officials of the Federal Road Safety Corps and vehicle inspection officers. Before the creation of the FRSC, driving schools worked closely with state road traffic units to provide structured training and testing before licenses were issued. That framework had weakened. Today, enforcement gaps allowed untrained drivers on the roads. The impact is visible. FRSA figures show Nigeria records over 9,000 road crashes each year, with more than 80% linked to human error, including poor driving skills and lack of training. At the same time, rapid urban growth and vehicles import have pushed Nigerians' registered vehicle population beyond 12 million, increasing pressure on already strained road safety systems. Joseph Adejo, chief instructor at Joy International Driving School in Abuja, says proper training remains central to road safety, but compliance is poor.
Either you go through driving school, VIU, the VIU will take you to driving school. To say, okay, register with so driving school. That's why we have standard driving schools. So the driving school, now whether you are in Gwagwalada, if your driving school is standard, people will look for you. Driving school is not like you just park your car under a tree and you say you want to do a driving school. You must have office. You must have simulator, both manual and automatic, and you must have standard manual and automatic cars so that you can use it to train your students. The fault is not from the driving school. It's not from the fault is not from the driving school of FRSC or VIU. You know, human being behaviors are different. Some drivers are above the law. Instead of maintain that 100 for express, they speed more than 100. But driving school will tell them that the maximum speed for car on expressway is 100. Anything more than 100 is overspeed. I know overspeed kill.
Regulatory agencies insist driving schools are still a mandatory part of the licensing process. However, road safety analysts say the problem is systematic, weak oversight by the FRSC, comprised inspections by VIOs, and poor enforcement of certificate requirements.
I am yet to get to a place where I will apportion blame. And I don't think I will apportion blame to anybody. I would rather say the question you are asking now is a societal issue. Road safety is doing their part. The ROTS, which is representing the FCT administration, the states are doing their own part. Their part they are doing is ensuring that all the driving schools are well equipped. All the driving schools meet certain standards. And when they meet all the standards and people are not coming to them, you will not blame them. When you come with the certificate, it doesn't end there. Our own duty is to test you.
As traffic volumes rise nationwide, experts warn that restoring the authority of accredited driving schools and tightening license controls may be the key to reducing crashes and saving lives. Until accountability cuts across all agencies, a pressing question remains: are Nigerians drivers properly trained or simply licensed? Well, Samson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
And now to Borno State, where the state governor Babagana Umar Zulum has reaffirmed his administration's commitment to youth empowerment as a critical tool for economic stability and increased productivity in the state. The governor stated this on Friday in Maiduguri during the disbursement of a 1 billion naira empowerment package to 3,500 GSM marketers, alongside the training and equipping of 1,050 GSM technicians. Governor Zulum said the initiative aligns with his administration's broader achievements in education and health care, noting that empowering young people with skills and resources will foster innovation, instill a strong work ethic, and help curb youth agitation and extremist ideologies, while presenting financial support to the beneficiaries. The governor assured that similar training and empowerment programs will be extended to other entrepreneurs and business groups across the state. He further urged beneficiaries to serve as mentors within their communities by transferring the skills acquired during the 3-month training program to others.
It gives me the immense pleasure and a deep sense of fulfillment to stand before you today on this historic occasion, the official launch of the disbursement of 1 billion empowerment scheme alongside the training of operators at the GSM market here in Maiduguri. This gathering is not just about disbursing funds or conducting training. It is about renewing hope, restoring dignity, and strengthening the economic resilience of our people, especially our hardworking youths and small-scale entrepreneurs who are the backbone of our state's economy. From the onset of this administration, we made a solid commitment to invest in human capital development, believing firmly that the true wealth of Borno State lies not in its natural resources alone, but in the skills, creativity, and determination of its people.
In Adamawa State, what was once discarded as waste is now being transformed into wealth as the state government intensifies efforts to promote sustainable livelihoods and environmental protection through the Ministry of Entrepreneurship Development. The government has concluded a 5-day training and empowerment program in briquette production aimed at turning waste into a viable source of income and clean energy. And Trust TV's Gibson Swadigo reports from Yola.
After 5 days of intensive training, members of various cooperative societies are heading home with smiles and briquette production machines, symbols of a new beginning. The initiative focuses on converting agricultural and household waste into alternative energy sources, providing a cleaner and more affordable substitute for charcoal. A total of 100 beneficiaries, drawn from different parts of Adamawa State, were trained and equipped with practical skills to produce briquettes using locally available materials. Beyond skills acquisition, the program is designed to curb deforestation, promote environmental sustainability, and create income-generating opportunities, particularly for youth and women.
I appeal to you people, please make use of the knowledge and also train others to benefit. You know, His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Adamawa State, as said by my Permanent Secretary, established this ministry for the purpose of training and empowering. In fact, we are up and doing to make sure that we are following the rules and regulations governing the ministry, governing the state.
For both the Adamawa State government and the participants, the briquette production training represents a powerful blend of empowerment and sustainability, turning environmental waste into economic value for the people.
Material, we can source them in our locality. We don't need to go far. They are things that's why we call them from waste to wealth. These are things that we are not so concerned about. But with this workshop, we've come to understand that we can easily convert them from waste to wealth.
I have trained people how to make the charcoal from the local raw material, which is the aim is to convert waste to wealth. The raw material we are using, they are very common. You see all this granola, rice husk, wooden stuff, all this local material except nylon. We convert it, we crush it, and then we convert it to the charcoal. And you can see the differences of the one we are quoting from the bush.
As a global call for environmental protection and climate-smart solution grows louder, the Adamawa State government says it remains committed to initiatives that protect the environment while improving livelihoods. Gibson Soadugo, Trust TV News, Yola.
In business, Nigeria's trade with other economic community of West African state ECOWAS countries rose by 43% year-on-year to 6.9 trillion naira in the first 9 months of 2025, up from 4.82 trillion naira in the same period in 2024. Analysis of data from the Foreign Trade in Goods Statistics report recently released by the National Bureau of Statistics showed that the growth was driven largely by a 37.6% year-on-year increase in exports, which rose to 6.14 trillion naira in 9M25 from 4.46 trillion naira in 9M24. Imports also surged sharply, rising 113.15% on year to 770.46 billion naira in 9M25 from 361.46 billion naira in 9M24. Now, quarter-on-quarter trends revealed that Nigeria's trade with ECOWAS jumped 82.6% in quarter 2 2025 to 2.32 trillion naira from 1.27 trillion naira in Q1 2025. In Q3 in 2025, trade further rose by 43% Q-on-Q to 3.32 trillion naira. Now, away from Nigeria, the South African government has rejected allegations by the United States that it harassed and intimidated American officials during a recent raid on a center processing refugee applications by white South Africans seeking asylum in the U.S. The raid carried out on Tuesday led to the deportation of 7 Kenyan nationals for allegedly working illegally in South Africa. Now, following the operation, the U.S. accused South African authorities of publishing the passport details of American officials involved, describing the action as unacceptable and warning of possible severe consequences. South Africa has firmly denied the allegation, insisting it treats data protection and security with the utmost seriousness. The incident comes amid heightened tensions over the U.S. decision to offer asylum to members of South Africa's Afrikaner community, whom Washington claims are facing persecution. The South African government has repeatedly rejected the claim. Now, under President Donald Trump's administration, the U.S. has drastically reduced its annual refugee intake from 125,000 to 7,500, but says Afrikaners, largely descendants of Dutch and French settlers, will be prioritized. Diplomatic relations between the two countries have continued to strain since President Trump assumed office. For Sport Update, let's join Joseph Peter.
Nigeria National League (NNL) and the Nigeria Women Football League (NWFL) has entered into a landmark 10 years, 40 billion naira partnership with top-tier sport management. Speaking at the signing ceremony, the Chief Executive Officer of the top-tier sport management, Mrs. Chichi Nwoko, described the investment as just the beginning, stressing that she believes there's still much work to be done. According to her, the partnership is driven by a deep-rooted passion to redefine and elevate the sporting narrative in Nigeria. She revealed that her inspiration comes largely from her 2 children, whose love for football continues to fuel her commitment to the game. Ms. Nwoko further disclosed that clubs will receive 200 million naira at the end of every season, with first 5 years serving as a trial phase for the partnership. Reacting to the development, NNL Chairman Chief George Aluo welcomed the initiative, describing it as a positive step forward for Nigerian football. He assured of transparency and accountability throughout the duration of the agreement. On her part, NWFL Chief Operating Officer Modupe Shabi hailed the partnership as a major milestone for women's football in Nigeria. She emphasized that the collaboration would empower the women's game and set it on a path towards commercial viability. The Director General of the National Sport Commission, Honorable Bukola Olakpade, also praised Ms. Nwoko for her timely and decisive investment in Nigerian sport. He commended her vision, resilience, and leadership, expressing optimism that the deal could eventually be reviewed upward to 100 billion naira sponsorship. The event attracted key stakeholders from across Nigerian football, including administrators and officials, with the General Secretary of the Nigerian Football Federation in attendance alongside other dignitaries. That's Sport News. I'm Joseph Peter.
With that, we've come to the end of News Hour on Trust TV. Do well to follow us on all of our social media platforms and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more news. I am Maimuna Bagudu. Have a great weekend and thanks for watching. Good night.